Hi, this is Eric Don from MommyFit, and I want to talk to you today about something that affects a lot of people over the age of 60. So can you get this if you're under 60? Yes, but this happens to people particularly if you're over 60. What that thing is spinal stenosis. So what spinal stenosis is a pinching of the vertebrae, particularly in your lower back, that causes a shooting pain when the nerves are pinched. So if you look at the spine right here, you'll see that there should be space in between each vertebrae. And when there's no space, or when the space is pinching on your nerves, what it does is sends a shooting pain or a pain down the lower extremities, down the side of your leg to your feet, and you'll feel a pain. This often can be confused with sciatica, which can be a symptom of having stenosis. And if you go to the spine, kind of like osteoporosis, where you don't always want to do the same exercises regardless of what your condition is, spinal stenosis is the same. That's why you want to focus more on flexion exercises as opposed to extension exercises, which sometimes can kind of exacerbate the condition. So I like to say, let's get into it.
So as you see me bending forward in a flexion position in this hip hinge, this is much different as opposed to bending backwards in extension. So the exercises we need to do really focus on flexion because they actually open up the spine a little bit more as opposed to extending, which is some of the reasons why we get that pinching. This is why, for example, when it comes to an exercise like the prone cobra, which if you know me, I love this exercise, but if you have stenosis, probably one you should either limit or avoid. So the area that I want to focus on first when it comes to stenosis is your core. And I want you to first, when you're lying on your back, do you have a ton of space between your lower back? And what I mean by a ton of space, can you easily put both hands in that space? If you have that increased curve or probably anterior pelvic tilt, this actually might be contributing to your stenosis, meaning contributing to that pinching in your lumbar spine. So I want you to be able to take both hands, if you can, and put them right in that space. Next, I want you to actually flatten your lower back on your hands, crushing them and lifting your knees in the air. Can you hold this for 20 or 30 seconds? When this becomes easy, now lift your legs straight in the air. Can you hold that position for 20 or 30 seconds? Doing these types of exercises will help strengthen your abs. Some of the stretches that I have you do is, again, focusing on forward flexion. So the first one is a hamstring stretch, where again, I have my heel on the chair and I'm bending in a hip hinge forward. You should feel the stretch in the hamstring. Another way to stretch my hamstrings if I don't want to do it standing is lying in front of the wall and putting my feet up. I can hang out here for 30 seconds, a minute, however long, and the wall actually does the work for you. Next, let's stretch our glutes. And if you want to stay seated, just pull your knee right up to your chest. So you're pretty much just sitting tall and pulling your knee as much as you can to your chest. After this, if you have no problem crossing your legs, do the same thing and hug your knee and pull it right to your chest. What you should feel is a stretch right in this area right here as you're sitting tall. Our last seated stretch is our figure 4 stretch, where I'm going to have my leg crossed, the hand that I'm not using, trying to flatten out that knee. And then from here, I'm going to do a little bit of a hip hinge, as you see me doing right here. Ideally, you should feel the stretch right in that right side of the glute for me. And what I want to pay special attention to is when I just bent my head right there. A lot of times, a big mistake people make is to bend their back around their back. What you should be doing is hinging from your hips, just like me. Say you don't want to do those last 3 stretches seated. Well, that's easy. You can just go ahead and pull that knee right to your chest, where you should feel it right in the glutes. After that, let's go ahead and use the opposite hand to pull that knee a little bit across the body towards your chest. What you should feel it is in your glutes. And after that, just like when we were seated, we're going to do a figure 4 stretch. Except this time, I'm going to have you use both hands to reach through your legs to pull your legs forward. Again, you should feel it right in the glutes. Finally, I want you to do a hip flexor stretch. But traditionally in a hip flexor stretch, I like people usually nice and tall. But this one, again, a little bit of a hip hinge. You can use a chair, but also you can use your stairs. And what you should feel is that stretch right in the front of that hip and thigh.
So those are my spinal stenosis tips. But one more, if you like to do cardio, try using an exercise bike or a stationary bike basically, which gets you in that forward flexion position, but with a hip hinge, not bending from the back. On that note, thank you very much. It's Eric Don from OmniFit. Take care.